What's good, everybody? This is CP, and you can also call me Pang as well. And today I'm going to quickly tell you why the idea of compound interest might not work as well as you think. In fact, the numbers actually show that it might not help the average investor get to financial freedom in time. So let's not waste any more time and 走起吧. So for those unfamiliar with the idea of compound interest, I'm just going to quickly give you a very basic definition. Essentially, the basic idea of compound interest is when you earn interest on both the money you save and the interest you earn. So for example, if you invested $1,000, which would be your principal, and in 1 year it earns you 5% of interest. After the first year, you will have $1,050, which basically equals your original principal plus 5% of $50. Now moving on to your second year, you'll have $1,102.50. That's because the next interest payments equals 5% of $1,050, which would be $52.50. Essentially, the idea of compound interest is that your principal plus your interest payments accumulates and your net worth gets bigger and bigger. So basically, this is the idea of compound interest, which is often preached by a lot of financial advisors and individual investors, as many believe it is one of the best ways to create wealth and financial freedom to help you retire as early as possible. However, I did decide to dig a little bit deeper and look further into the numbers. And surprisingly, the numbers have shown that the strategy of compound interest might not work out for most average working folks, as the odds might be stacked against those working on an average salary and might not be able to help them reach financial freedom and retire comfortably in time. So instead of wasting more time discussing the idea why compound interest might not work for the average investor like you and me, I guess the most straightforward thing for me to do is break things down with a simple example and show you the actual numbers. That way I can let everybody decide if I'm right or wrong. So let's go. So for my example, let's say Pang is 25 years old and he just graduated from university, started working for a few years, paid off his student debt, and got all his bills covered. So pretty much he's got his adult life figured out. Now with everything going well after graduating from college, he was able to set aside some money. And over those few years, he was able to accumulate $20,000 of liquid cash purely for investing. Obviously, $20,000 of liquid cash is not a fortune, but I would still argue that it's a pretty good amount of change, especially for someone in his age group, considering how some people his age might still be in college, meanwhile others might have graduated but might still have to pay off their student loans and have a lot of other bills to cover, which in a sense means that they do not have extra liquid cash purely for investing to take advantage of compound interest and to grow their money. One more thing to keep in mind is that many people in their early 20s do not start saving money. So financially speaking, Pang does have a leg up on the average 25-year-old. Now moving on, let's say his goal is to hit $1 million. He feels that if he hits $1 million, he could retire comfortably and never have to work again. So he took the advice of his financial investor or his brilliant investor friend and invested $20K into the S&P 500 index, which generates an average of about 10% per year. On top of that, let's say Pang is able to save $500 every month to put back in his portfolio. So based on the criteria, it would take Pang almost 30 years, 27 years to be exact, to hit his target of $1 million. So by the time his portfolio reaches $1 million, he will be about 52 to 55 years old, which isn't that young but isn't that old either. And if you look at the averages, he actually beat out the retirement age of 65 by a lot, by over 10 years. So not bad, eh? However, in order for Pang to successfully reach the $1 million mark, we need to be cognizant of several things. This includes he cannot take money out of his portfolio in any of the 27 years to cover any big life event such as a family emergency, a wedding, a down payment for his house, his kids' tuition, or even a nice family vacation. Essentially, that money has to come from elsewhere and not from his portfolio. If he were to take out money from his portfolio, then it would actually set him back a few years. Secondly, Pang needs to come up with $500 every month to invest. Now, $500 might be doable for some people, but obviously not everyone has the same financial situation, so there might be some tough months for some people to come up with that $500. And to do it for 27 consecutive years every month takes a lot of dedication. And obviously with the job market, there are no guarantees, so this is assuming that Pang has a steady job, does not get fired for 27 years. Now, finally, for this particular example, I would also argue that is the $1 million actually enough for Pang to retire at the age of 52? If you were to ask me, I'm not so sure. Assuming that he stays healthy, he might have 30 more years to live. And depending on his lifestyle, if he were to never work again after 52 and continuously decide to take out from his $1 million portfolio every year, then the money might actually run out before he dies. Just my opinion. On top of that, we can't forget about the effects of inflation. Now, the average inflation for the past 30 years was about 2 to 3%. So if we multiply the average by 27 years, Pang's $1 million 27 years from now would actually give him about 30% less purchasing power. In other words, $1 million 27 years from now would buy him a lot less than $1 million today. So depending on his lifestyle, the amount of bills and people he has to take care of, his life expectancy, and how much inflation increases, he might actually need more than $1 million to survive the next 20 or 30 years. Obviously, as you can see, this is just a very basic example with a lot of different factors. But the bottom line for me is that I would consider compound interest as a great ally to grow your net worth. However, it does take a lot of discipline, consistency, and a life of frugality to get there. And in most cases, it takes the average person working on an average salary over 25 years to get there. But once they reach their magic number of maybe $1 million, it still might not be enough for them to retire on. So in short, if you were in a similar financial situation as Pang right now, I would actually argue if compound interest would actually get you to financial freedom and retire comfortably in time. Let me know in the comment section below of what you think about this example, and let me know if I'm right or wrong. I hope everybody goes out there and kills it today. So let's not waste any more time and 走起吧. Subscribe right now and I'll love you forever. I promise. For 15 years of good luck, hit that like button now and activate your good fortunes. Do it now.